My name is Charlotte Limbrickett, and today we'll be delving into an interesting debate. Are pie, donut, and bar charts truly equal, or does one surpass the other? Over the course of this presentation, I'll explore insights from a recent study, diving into the strengths and weaknesses of these chart types and the factors that influence their effectiveness. So here's the article that we'll be going over today. It's a article with a bit of a sinister title called "Are Pie Charts Evil?" And basically, what this article is about is it's an assessment on whether pie and donut charts hold up in value when compared to bar charts, and whether they should stop being used or be limited in use when compared to bar charts. Now, here's what we'll cover today. First, we'll compare rectangles and circles to understand their differences in perceptual accuracy in the scope of summarizing the article, as this is the basic foundation. Then, to summarize the article more, we will analyze three major chart types: pie, donut, and bar, to see how they stack up. Then we'll discuss perception studies and explore how our minds interpret these visualizations. We'll also quantify these findings through experimental results and consider what they reveal about chart effectiveness. Finally, I'll summarize the merits, shortcomings, and key takeaways of the study in our own analysis to wrap things up. By the end, we'll have a cleaner perspective on which chart type is best suited for which purpose. Now, let's start with a fun metaphor. Which Costco food item is hardest to share fairly with friends? Is it this pizza here, or is this the hot dog here? This sets the stage for understanding how we perceive different shapes. Research shows that the human brain is naturally better at interpreting certain physical attributes than others. For example, position along a common scale, like bars on a graph, is the most accurately perceived, followed by length, angle, and finally area, making the latter the least precise. However, it is important to acknowledge that this hierarchy isn't universal. Individual differences in context can influence how effectively people process visual information. Beyond the hierarchy, factors like ease of use, speed of understanding, and familiarity also play significant roles in determining how well data is conveyed. Interestingly, while circles are more prone to misinterpretation compared to rectangles, they remain useful for showing how a part of something relates to a whole. Think of pizza slices as part of a single pizza, in contrast to individual hot dogs that lack such cohesion, especially as we get more and more hot dogs and the data size grows. Moving on, let's examine why pie, donut, and bar charts aren't created equal. Research reveals that bar charts tend to outperform the other two in terms of accuracy and ease of use. Bar charts display data through height or length, allowing for straightforward and consistent comparisons. On the other hand, pie and donut charts rely on less reliable cues such as angles, area, or segment proportions, which often vary based on how individuals interpret them. The study also notes that variability plays a significant role. While pie and the donut charts are effective for showing broad properties, such as part-whole relationships, their accuracy fluctuates widely based on which strategy viewers use to interpret it. Some people estimate the pie chart by quartering the circle or by judging arc length, which leads to inconsistent results. In contrast, bar charts provide a stable, common reference for comparisons, resulting in more reliable interpretations overall. Now let's look into perception as a study. So in the article, they did a study of how perception influences the interpretation of data visualizations. The article explores qualitative differences between chart types. Bar charts rely on a common scale, which simplifies comparisons by aligning values along a single reference point. In contrast, pie charts require a more holistic approach, as viewers need to interpret angles and areas. This results in greater cognitive effort and variability. The study also investigated perceptual strategies and biases. For example, bar charts encourage length estimation, while pie charts involve proportion estimation, which can be affected by perceptual laws such as Weber's law or Stevens' law. Weber's law is basically saying that the error in subjective value is proportional to the magnitude of subjective value. Whereas Stevens' law says that the psychological magnitude of a given attribute is proportional to the stimulus magnitude. These laws reveal how humans perceive changes in magnitude and proportion, adding complexity to how pie charts are interpreted. Additionally, this researchers evaluated cognitive load by asking participants to estimate proportions from 0 to 100%. These results showed that pie and donut charts demanded significantly more cognitive effort, further highlighting their challenges. Next, the studies shifted to a quantitative analysis of perception. Participants were tasked with comparing segment sizes across different chart types to assess accuracy and response time. Bar charts consistently yielded the fastest and most accurate results, especially when comparing segments of different sizes. Pie and donut charts, however, struggled with small differences, leading to slower responses and higher error rates. The researchers also examined the proportional relationship between estimated and actual values. While all chart types exhibited systematic errors, bar charts provided the most reliable overall. The experimental design was highly robust, involving a statistically significant sample size of 30 to 40 participants, randomized chart types, and 50 unique charts. This ensured that the findings were both comprehensive and statistically valid. These experimentations were accumulated in questions of varying difficulties. As you can see in the top right corner, it's asking which bar is longer, A or B, and it asks another question, which is more subjective. As you can see, this is done for many types of charts, including bar, pie, and donut charts. So, do these findings definitely prove that bar charts are superior? Well, not exactly. While bar charts excel in tasks requiring precise numerical comparisons, such as distinguishing between segments of similar size, pie and donut charts remain effective for simpler tasks. For example, pie charts are useful for conveying broad proportions or part-whole relationships where exact accuracy isn't as critical. That being said, the results emphasize that context matters. The choice of chart depends on the nature of the task, the complexity of the data, and the audience's need. While bar charts are generally more versatile and accurate, pie and donut charts still have their place in specific scenarios and should not be discounted completely. Now, basically, now that we summarize the article, the article does provide valuable insights into the strengths and weaknesses of each chart type. It highlights that bar charts are the most effective for precise comparisons thanks to their use of a common scale and consistent reference points. However, it also acknowledges the usefulness of pie and donut charts for less complex tasks, particularly those involving proportional relationships. In conclusion, the study reinforced the importance of tailoring visualizations to the task at hand. No single chart type is universally superior. Each has its own strengths and limitations. By understanding these nuances, we can make more informed decisions about which visualizations to use in different contexts. Now that we have summarized the article, let's talk about this slide right here. Merits of the article. The article presents a compelling case for bar charts as superior tools for data visualization, particularly when precise comparisons are needed. It highlights how the spatial structure of bar charts with their linear layout allows for clear and accurate interpretations. Unlike circular charts such as pies or donuts, bar charts align values along a baseline, making it easier to perceive differences in height or length. The article also delves into the importance of graphical marks, the individual elements of a chart. Bar charts use rectangular marks, which are easier to compare due to their uniformity. In contrast, pie and donut charts rely on wedge-shaped marks based on angles and areas, which are harder for the human eye to evaluate accurately. By focusing on these distinctions, The article effectively argues that bar charts are better suited for tasks requiring speed and precision. If we go back to our Costco pizza and hot dog example, we can see this difference clearly. When we asked about which one is more unfair to share with your friends, one might think that it would be the hot dog because it's more obvious to us that this hot dog is uneven and it has different sizes when compared to analyzing the sizes of the slices in the pizza. This is because of the circular layout of the pizza and the fact that angles and areas are harder to determine on circular shapes than length and position along a common axis is for rectangular shapes. Now, while advocating for bar charts, the article acknowledges that no single type of visualization is universally ideal. Instead, it emphasizes the importance of selecting the right chart based on the specific task at hand. For example, while bar charts excel in detailed comparisons, they may not be the best choice for presenting proportions or part-whole relationships where pie or donut charts shine. Another strength of the article is its recognition that different audiences and tasks require different approaches. For instance, a highly technical audience may prefer the precision of bar charts, while a general audience might find pie charts more intuitive for visualizing simple proportions. By addressing these nuances, the article provides a balanced perspective on data visualization. And this comes to a little question that we want to see. So here are all of the majors these are the top majors that are offered at the University of Alabama, Little Rock. And you see that the most common major is registered nursing, followed by criminal justice, and so on and so on and so on. Now you might be wondering, well, what data visualization is best to represent this data? Is it a bar chart or is it a pie chart? Well, one could make arguments for both, as we can clearly see. And the idea that one of them is superior to the other is something that is not completely sensical, as different charts work differently in different situations. Let's talk a little bit about the shortcomings of the article. So basically this all boils down to the fact that evaluations of visualizations are not trivial. Despite its strength, the article does have some limitations. One major issue is its attempt to provide a definitive answer to the question of which chart type is best. In reality, the effectiveness of a chart depends on context, audience, and complexity of the data, making it difficult to easily declare any one type as universally superior. Additionally, the article falls short in addressing the real-world use of visualizations. It largely discusses idealized versions of pie, donut, and bar charts, without considering how these charts are often adapted or distorted in practice. For example, charts in the real world are frequently adjusted for readability or emphasis, which can affect their accuracy and interpretation. Now I want to bring in an example of the homework grade for this class. So for our homeworks, we have to submit data visualizations, but you might be wondering, why are the homeworks graded by our peers rather than by the professor? One might think at first that the professor is just being lazy, but in reality, it might be because data visualizations are not objective. They are not objectively correct or objectively wrong. Therefore, we need many different views on which one works best. And that's why I believe the homeworks are rated by our peers, because it's much better to rate a subjective experience with tens of your peers than one particular person. Now, another shortcoming is the article's reliance on the assumption that charts are always presented in their simplest and most neutral form. In reality, visualizations are often intentionally or unintentionally distorted. For example, by scaling segments, by using color gradients, or by adjusting proportions to emphasize specific trends. These distortions can significantly impact how data is perceived, a factor the article does not explore through its black and white and neutral graphs. Moreover, the article does not fully account for how subjectivity influences the interpretation of visualizations. People's ability to read and understand charts can vary widely based on their background, experience, or even cultural differences. By oversimplifying these nuances, the article misses an opportunity to provide a more comprehensive analysis of data visualization. For example, color aside, here are some of the charts that were presented in the article. As we see, we have a pie chart on the left and a bar chart on the right. These are relatively neutral other than the colors, but in reality, we see that bar and pie charts can be presented in misleading ways, maybe to intentionally fool or maybe unintentionally fool the participants. Well, let's now talk about some key takeaways. In summary, the article offers valuable insights into the strengths and weaknesses of different chart types. It demonstrates that bar charts are generally more effective for precise numerical comparisons thanks to their use of length as a visual cue, which is easier for the human brain to process. However, it also acknowledges that while pie and donut charts have their place, particularly for tasks that involve showing proportions or part-whole relationships, ultimately the best visualization depends on context, task complexity, and audience needs. The article underscores the importance of tailoring visualizations to the specific purpose they are intended to serve, rather than relying on a one-size-fits-all approach. The flexibility is key to effective data communication. Anyways, I'd like to thank you all for your attention. I hope this presentation has provided you with a deeper understanding of the nuances of data visualization and the factors that influence chart effectiveness. Remember, there is no perfect chart type. It's all about choosing the right tool for the job.
Well, thank you. And I may have said it because I say it every semester, but when it comes to the project, it's kind of hard to beat a bar chart. If a bar chart is the answer for your project, then it's maybe a little bit too simple. So that's one thing. The other is pointed out, yes, pie charts are good, donut charts are good, but they are a little bit trickier to use. You have to pay a little bit more attention. Bar charts, you can always pull them out, and they provide quite a lot of information, or they provide quite a lot of information easily. So that's and a line chart is almost like a bar chart and so forth. I wish they were also looking at those things that Tableau proposes with a little bubbles, like a bubble chart, and compare those. That would have been a nice comparison. The other thing that I really don't have a good solution, but yeah, the homework part is, I know it's visualization is subjective, but what I wanted to, mainly my decision there was because of kind of the nature. We're asynchronous, or we're not in class. If I were in class, I can run a discussion. I can ask people. I can kind of conduct on more of a critical thinking stuff. And the homework is just, and I tried to do kind of those online things, discussions, and they didn't work that well. It was frustrating. So that's my middle ground. I don't know. It doesn't work exactly how I would want it, but this at least gives you an idea of what other people have done, and maybe everyone kind of spends at least 5 minutes looking, or 2 minutes looking at somebody else's work. So that's kind of, I think that's the bright stuff in there. I don't have a clear solution, but it's just the way the homework is set up right now. It's mostly a byproduct of it not being an in-person class that I can run, because it used to be more interactive when we were many moons ago in person. Everybody would be in class, and attendance was mandatory and all that. Now it's more flexible in a sense, but that's kind of what we're paying, the price we're paying. And like I said, that's kind of where I am. I know it's subjective. Even if I were to grade it, it would be subjective, and you may not agree with what I do, but in that case, I'm still not going to